This is Matt. I want to welcome everybody to our 45th webinar of the series. I was kind of thinking about this, that 50 is coming up. We're going to have like a little celebration or something for 50 of these webinars that have been happening, I think, since about 2011 or 2012 when we first started this. One item that we're having to do is actually go through some of the old webinars that are hosted on various servers and actually download them. So I was looking at some of the earlier ones and everything, and it's really evolved over the past 8 or 9 years that we've been doing this. So I think it's been really great doing these. I think they've been informative, and I want to thank everybody who sort of makes this possible. Steve Gay over at FHWA, and then the whole team over at SpyPond. These webinars, they are held every 2 months. This is the TAM webinar series. We also have the TPM pooled fund webinar series that are happening in the other months. So this is August. This is one of the even months. So in the odd month is when we'll have the TPM pooled fund webinars talking about performance management now, well, a little more broadly. If you want more information about that, you can go to one of 2 websites for asset management. It's the TAM portal, tam-portal.com. And if it's performance management related, it's tpm-portal.com. You can go there, you can sign up for all these webinars. You can also download the recordings, the presentations, that sort of thing from previously held webinars. And as always, being number 45, we are always looking for topics, webinar topics that are of interest to you. If you have ideas, please let us know. You can email me, mhardy@ashto.org. You can email Steve Gay. I forget, I think it's Stephen.Gay or Steve.Gay, G-A-J at dot.gov. We are always looking for topics that are of interest to you as the practitioners. In terms of logistics for this webinar, in terms of Q&A, please use the webinar's Q&A functionality. That's the way that we can take your questions. If for some reason we can't answer them during the webinar today, we can always follow up with you afterwards. So anyways, with that, I just want to say again, thank you to all the panelists, and I want to say again, thank you to Steve Gay. And with that, I will turn it over to Steve for some opening remarks from FHWA.
Thanks, Matt. Steve's actually not able to join us today, so yeah, so I'll be doing Steve's part. So he's sending his regrets, and I know he's disappointed that he can't be part of this. So FHWA is a proud sponsor of this webinar series in cooperation with AASHTO. We're glad to see so many of you returning from previous webinars, and we're looking forward to seeing you on many more webinars to come. We have a great lineup for today's webinar. We're looking at TAM communications and visualizations. We have some very cool demos that our presenters have prepared for us, and we're going to keep our introductions short for that because we want to get to them. All right, now let's go over to our agenda and objectives for today's webinar. The purpose of the webinar series is to share lessons learned, ideas, and knowledge from with the asset management community. For this webinar, the primary learning objectives are building working knowledge of key concepts and definitions relevant to TAM communications and visualization, beginning to apply this knowledge in the context of agencies' TAM programs and plans in order to answer the following questions. What approaches are agencies taking to communicating and visualize TAM data and information? What benefits can my agency expect by improving its communication and visualization abilities? What are key lessons learned for agencies as they move forward with building communication and visualization capabilities? And of course, to share lessons learned, ideas, and knowledge. Jeremy Plantine of Oklahoma DOT will kick off the webinar with a presentation on ODOT's TAM data visualization approach. Seattle's Steve Barham will follow Jeremy. Steve's presentation focuses on Seattle DOT's equity data tool and will feature a live demo. After Steve, we'll have Logan Dash from the MBTA, the transit agency in the metropolitan Boston area. Logan will be sharing with us his agency's experience building a bus dispatch mobile app called Skate. Philippe Young of Atkins Global will close out our presentation with a look at augmented and virtual reality and its application in the infrastructure management sphere. And just another reminder, please submit your comments and questions using the Q&A features on the webinar control panel at any time during today's presentation. And in response to the most frequently asked question, yes, we'll make the slides and video available after today's webinar at tam-portal.com. And in fact, the slides you can download on the handouts part of the webinar toolbar right now. So let's get started with Jeremy Plantine's presentation. Jeremy is Assistant Manager of Data for the Oklahoma's Strategic Asset and Performance Management Division and the TAM lead. He's been with the department for over 7 years and has led the agency's efforts in transforming the GIS group to a nationally recognized award-winning status, as well as spearheading the agency's push implementing non-intrusive traffic count and classification systems. Jeremy.
Thank you. So today I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the kind of basic things that we've done that I think have had some pretty big impacts on getting our data to our stakeholders and our decision makers. I'll preface this by saying my background is in GIS. I'm not an engineer, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about how do we make this data relevant, accessible, and usable for the people who need it when they need it. So to give you a little bit of background, it seems sort of intuitive and kind of common sense, but ODOT is heavily focused on data-driven decision making, and I think we've been that way for as long as data has really been a part of operations, so many decades. And so that is obviously transformed as technology has changed over those many decades. And so as a result of that, we're constantly in this state of evaluating how do we make this data accessible and available to the people who need it. And so we've employed a variety of strategies, and I'm going to go over a few of those today. Again, none of this is magic. These are all basic, accessible tools that even small staffs and small budgets can stand up and utilize to pretty high degrees of effectiveness. And so one of the things we've done is we've got an ArcGIS Online map and data portal. This is an online AWS hosted instance. Most of you are probably familiar with ArcGIS Online, and this has been a major game changer in our agency. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And the idea is that this, again, puts the department's asset data at your fingertips. We've got a ton of data. A lot of it is, siloed and buried in various divisions. How do we bring that stuff together in a way that makes sense? For a long time, the department had operated in project selection using what we refer to as district notebooks, and these are static copies of various pavement, bridge, and safety data elements that were produced once per year and then typically disseminated in some type of a hard copy paper format. We've now moved those into an electronic version that is a whole lot more ad hoc, a lot more responsive, and a lot more dynamic. And then we've also, in recent months, also instituted some static performance progress sheets. And we'll talk about those here in a minute. And these are in response to the needs from some of our legislators and our leadership at the Capitol. So one of the things that I spend a lot of time with my team on is this continuing search for what questions do we need to be asking, and subsequently, how do we answer those questions? And so I think that the big thing that we constantly run into is what data makes sense. And so we've got a broad cross-section of data, all the way from jurisdictional information to roadway element data to financial data, all of these different data elements. And I think one of the things that is a constant struggle, especially in an era of technology making data accessibility better, is how much is too much and is there too much? And then once we get all of that data together, how do we present it in a way that doesn't overwhelm or bog down the process, and create problems that maybe we didn't anticipate or didn't exist before we made that data accessible. Subsequent to that, how do we communicate if projects meet our stated performance and budgetary goals? So, behind the scenes, we're obviously paying very close attention to, we've got these stated goals in mind, both from our legislators and internally. How do we make sure that we're communicating back that, yes, in fact, we're making the right decisions, we're doing right by the taxpayers in the state of Oklahoma, and moving the department in a direction that makes sense for everybody? And how do we communicate that? And what tools are at our disposal to provide this information? Obviously in today's day and age, there's a ton of different BI products. You've got multiple different GIS web-based applications that you can use. There's various decision-making tools that are out there now. What do we have within our arsenal that can help us in that? And are there things that we can expand upon? So are the tools accessible to and usable by people in every step of the process? And so you have a broad cross section of people with various technical backgrounds and aptitudes. Some people are extremely busy, and so they don't have a lot of time to wade through a bunch of stuff. So how do we get them in their hands the data that they need to make the right decisions? And so just to give you kind of a general overview, and this is a very high level kind of conceptual overview, and it probably looks really similar in all DOTs, but this kind of helps frame where our data fits in this process. So at ODOT, we typically start out, there's a general need identified. Typically our district engineers or our central office engineers, know that there's, based on data we've provided them in the past, stretches of pavement that need attention, bridges that need attention, those kinds of things. And then they take what was in those division notebooks and is now in that electronic format that is provided to our district engineers. And that's that data set that brings together all of those pavement data, bridge data, safety data, all that stuff that they can then dig deeper into kind of the reality on the ground and figure out where does it make sense to put our projects, how do we spend our money the right way. And we've also instituted just recently the Decision Lens product that helps us more objectively rank our project based on our budgetary constraints, and then whatever the performance metric criteria is for that given area. So then as I mentioned, we've also got the GIS map and data portal for wider information access. So once they take that kind of distilled down the division notebooks, typically there's more questions that get asked. They now have this data immediately at their fingertips versus having before to call and ask for KMZ files or dig through a spreadsheet or do any number of different gyrations to get a hold of this information. Now they've got that literally at their fingertips. They can pull it up on a phone while they're standing out in the field, or behind the desk, or however that works. Our district engineers review and then collaborate with our central office project managers to pick out a set of projects based on their budget and time constraints. Then that moves to our executive staff and commission approval, and then the projects proceed into that, let and construction and completion phases. And so again, this is a data-driven process, all the way from start to finish. And because of that accessibility and that ability to get to that information is exceptionally important and has been for a long time. And so one of the things that we like to say is that we've got a heavy long-term use of TAMP principles, but we may not always say the word TAMP. We're doing TAMP stuff, but even though we're doing it, the people downstream, our district engineers, they might not be familiar with what that TAMP acronym means. So to give you a little bit of an overview on our map and data portal, so now in 2020, the ArcGIS Online map and data, kind of online environment is fairly ubiquitous. When we launched this 5 years ago, there were far fewer. There were still a number of states that had them, Utah, North Carolina, a few others, but there weren't a ton, and there weren't a ton that were, super fleshed out and robust. So we first launched ours again in late 2015, and this was in response to replacing an aging and fairly limited functionality custom GIS mapping product that we had that had various roadway data elements and bridge data elements in it. And it was a single map application that just was kind of a bucket for a whole bunch of stuff. And it was fairly cutting edge. when it was initially developed in the early 2000s, but over the course of 10 or 12 years, the code base had become out of date and antiquated. It had gone through several updates. It wasn't working in some browsers anymore. And so the interesting thing that we saw is in the early 2000s, there was a really heavy reliance on that geospatial information. But as that original map and data portal kind of fell off and went to the wayside and became more difficult to use and not accessible, people in response then reverted back to a much more static, much more paper way of managing their products. And so we had made a ton of progress. And then because we didn't keep up on kind of the technology curve and just expected people to just continue using this same product, it kind of fell backwards. And then, in the mid 2015, when we started this process to replace it, after that relaunched, we really saw kind of a revitalization and people kind of coming back to the fold on that geospatial information. So the whole time the projects were getting done and data was getting delivered, but it was a slower process, and some of that more granular data wasn't as readily available. And so I think people immediately recognized that, hey, I need this. Hey, we can use this. This is really effective, and we're really excited when it came back online. So again, it's ArcGIS online based, so it's very easy to set up, very easy to configure. So when we initially stood up our first version of this, we got notification midday on a Friday that we had gotten access to the online environment. I spent the weekend uploading data and configuring maps and web applications, and by that Monday morning, 3-4 days later, we had a fully functioning GIS portal that we could demonstrate for our executive staff. And so that was a big kind of game changer to recognize, hey, we can do this, we can do it internally, and we can do it well. And initially, because we had some other custom software development efforts in place and some work that we're doing to try to fill this niche, we ended up not having to do that work. And this particular application by itself saved us about $3 million in custom development over the course of about 3 years. So a pretty massive ROI right off the bat, just in development costs. And then I think the bigger number, the more important number, that's probably a little bit more difficult to quantify, is I think we've seen some pretty significant savings in manpower as well, because people aren't having to dig through data, they're not having to look through spreadsheets, it's all right there and they know how to get to it. So we've now got over 300 unique data sets and over 200 unique web map applications. Another thing that we've kind of prided ourselves on.
Jeremy,
Yeah.
I just wanted to interrupt to say you have about 4 minutes left, okay?
Okay, not a problem. And we've done a good job with non-disruptive integration with some of our downstream systems, and we've transformed a lot of these static, once per year things into a much more dynamic environment. So the district notebooks, again, these are just some PDF snapshots of what those look like. This is the old Bible for project selection. This helps direct that project selection to adhere to FHWA TAM principles. This is where we see our work plan and asset preservation and project data. We've got all of our pavement, bridge, functional class, and deficient shoulder, granular roadway data, in addition to our traffic and collision data. So this condenses all of our relevant data that they need for that initial project conceptualization into a single concise document, which in the past, again, was a static paper document, and now we're moving into that web-based kind of interactive environment. The next thing we've done, and this is in direct response to our governor's push for very transparent performance metrics, is that we've started publishing out these static quarterly sheets based on how we're doing in terms of the goals that we have set for ourselves internally, as well as the goals that we've set that have been set for us in conjunction with our legislature and our governor. And so these are designed around those performance measures. They're updated quarterly. And they provide a really easy, effective way to communicate to people who maybe don't have, a lot of understanding of the behind-the-scenes DOT processes. That yes, we're getting this stuff done. Here's the number of projects we've got going. Here's what the projects address. What kind of an impact is this going to have? And so to bring it kind of all together, this is an objective project selection process, and the big thing for us is a steady reliance and a concern about, what does data accessibility look like? We're really concerned about UI and UX and application ergonomics. We want to make sure that these applications and this data make sense to the people that are looking at it, that, we're not giving too much, but we're also, giving enough to get the decisions made that need to get made, and we really pride ourselves on being responsive with that. You know, we take feedback from all across the agency and from, you know, our private partners as well, constantly making changes to those applications and smoothing data and things like that to make the data useful in ways that are effective for us. And again, I mentioned we implemented Decision Lens and have had pretty good luck with it. And that incorporates our GIS project planning and financial data and allows that criteria-based ranking in hypothetical funding situations. So again, we pride ourselves on data-driven decision-making. Our existing processes lend themselves well to TAMP strategies. And again, we're doing that TAMP without even knowing it. So in an era of increasing demands on infrastructure and decreasing budgets, the tools we put in place help ensure that the department is getting the most out of our taxpayer dollars. And that's it for me.
All right. Thank you, Jeremy, for that presentation. Now we'll hear from Steve Barham from the Seattle DOT, where he works as a data scientist with interests in equity, mobility, spatial analysis, and cross-discipline collaboration. In his analysis, Steve often consumes open source data and transforms it with tools like Python and Tableau to enhance communication, analysis, and sharing of data at his agency. Steve also enjoys working with technology innovators and the civic technology community and has led teams at the University of Washington's Data Science for Social Good program. All right, Steve.
Hey, thanks a lot. I just want to make sure you can hear me okay. Again, my name's Steve.
Yeah,
my name's Steve
we
Barham.
can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. And you can see my screen.
Yes.
So I'm new to the group, so thanks for welcoming me here today. I'd like to demonstrate a data tool that I've created for the city of Seattle, and it's a tool for equity analysis, and I actually call it a data tool and approach, because what I'm trying to suggest is that if you don't use a tool like this, to use something like this, but I think the tool is going to be is very useful and interesting. I have some slides in the handouts, but I think I want to just forego most of the slides and just jump right into the demonstration so that we have more time to look at it. But I will say that when we're talking about equity analysis, if we're doing any kind of transportation planning, looking at our assets, we really need to know and have strong contextual information about the locations of the places that we're looking at and who lives there, and not just right now, historically and into the future. And so what I usually say is that this type of analysis is a collaboration. It's a data collaboration because we're looking at two different types of data. My data is transportation data. Maybe your data is housing data or demographics. And so it's a collaboration between different disciplines. And in order to collaborate, we need to have some commonalities and where the data intersect. Of course, it intersects in time, looking at usually 1 year versus another year, and then location. And so this tool, and I'm just going to jump into the actual demonstration. What this tool does is it creates a location, a unit of analysis that is the census tract, and that way, if we have any sort of spatial data and we can fit it to the census tract, then we can perform this type of analysis. This is the first page of the tool itself, and I kind of want to. I'm not sure if everyone will be familiar with Seattle, so I'll kind of orient you a little bit. This graph that the map that I'm showing here in the upper left corner is obviously the map of Seattle. We're surrounded by water. We're connected by bridges, and we have a population of around 700,000. I think greater Seattle's in maybe 3 times that. And the way that we're conducting equity analysis is by using an index that has been created for us by our Office of Policy and Development, and we call that the Race and Social Equity Composite Index. Basically, each one of these areas on the map is a census tract, and it ranks those census tracts from 1 to 100 in terms of equity. And the orange and the red areas are the areas that have the highest priority in terms of equity. And so one of the ways that we can look at that is by breaking down the city into quintiles. And so the very red are the top 20% in terms of equity, and then the second highest is the orange. And then this table that I'm pointing at a table on the right side and on the upper right, and it shows a breakdown of different demographics based on those equity quintiles. And so you can see that the highest, which is the red again, has the most quantity of people of color. It has the highest poverty, the lowest income, and then it also has the location with the most amount of disabilities. And you can see how if you go from high to low in terms of these equity indicators, they're correlated with race, it's correlated with income, it's correlated with disabilities. And so you can see why equity analysis is going to be important when you're looking at transportation data in the city. You can actually see that better at this distribution chart down here at the bottom, where you can see the median percentage of people of color in Seattle is 27%. And the priority areas are all distributed to the right of that. And then it's the same with income and then disabilities to a lesser extent. And so this is the basis for the rest of the tool to understand this. And you can see I'll just show you some interactive elements of this because I think it's kind of cool. If I wanted to just highlight the highest priority locations, it's pretty easy to do that. And then it also shows you where they are in comparison to the rest of the city. I think you can see that. You can go in and let's say if I'm interested in this area right here, you can see where that lies. And then we've also broken this down into 10 different, I'll call them commute neighborhoods. But for some folks, looking at census tracts is a little bit, it's too detailed, it's hard to consume. And so maybe it's somewhat easier to consume when we break them down into these neighborhoods. So that's the background. And I'm gonna quickly move over into another feature that we have. And one of the things that people ask me is okay, so I know who lives there, but I don't know where they're going or where they work. And so I've added a component that is from the longitudinal employer household dynamics data set that is available to for everywhere in the census database. And you can see the blue is where people work. I'm sorry, where they live, and the red is where they work. And so if I wanted to isolate, say, downtown, let's see, it's not letting me pick that. Let me pick another one. So maybe West Seattle. It quickly can tell you where everyone's going from West Seattle, and you can see it in a couple of different visualizations. And then we have some categorical information about income, age, and the types of industries. And then on the equity side, we can differentiate between the demographics of where they work and the demographics of where they're going. So that's this is just another tool that people are asking for. But I wanted to, because this is asset management tool, I wanted to show you how we've developed some templates that are applicable specifically to different types of asset data that we have. And this particular one is for pavement condition. Our pavement condition data, we have a really nice GIS portal as well, and anybody can go in and grab the pavement data. So I grabbed the pavement data and quickly transformed it into the census tract shapes. And so now you can see when we're doing equity analysis, one of the things we can ask ourselves is in the second highest priority areas, are we doing more work comparative to the rest of the city, or are we doing less work? And it looks like, I'm just gonna move this mouse over here. It looks like we're doing, in terms of pavement condition, which is a scale from 0 to 100, our average pavement condition in the highest areas is 57. I can isolate that if you want to see it. Our second highest is 50. So if we're looking at both of those two, that's about 53, 54 on average, which is about the same as the citywide average. And again, our unit of analysis is the census tract. So the median is 55. So the distribution is somewhat skewed. But I will point out one of the things that this tool does is makes it very interactive. So if I wanted to see sort of what are the, it's not letting me. Okay, here we go. So if I wanted to segment on sort of the census tracts that have the lowest pavement condition, it's fairly easy to do that. And to me, it's kind of interesting because all of these locations are kind of adjacent to Interstate 5, which splits the city, and so that gives us some more information. That's pavement condition. I want to show you a couple more before we run out of time. Here's potholes. So a long story short on the potholes is that there does not appear to be a disparity here, or it's a somewhat small disparity in terms of the number of potholes that we have comparative to the rest of the city. And one of the things we can do is we can start to look at outliers. Like this area here is we call it Soto, south of downtown, and it has a ton of potholes. It also has a ton of arterial miles. So we can do things like, I know that's census tract 9300. We can isolate that and see what the analysis is without that. The other thing we can do, you can see how I'm rolling over this, is you can see how the measurements have changed over time, and all of our GIS data usually has the time components, so it's easy to add that sort of stuff in here. We've also done sidewalks, so sidewalk condition. On this one, if you took a close look, you could see that in our priority areas, in terms of sidewalk coverage, where sidewalks don't exist, we have a lot of poor sidewalk coverage up here in the north end of the city, and so in terms of the demographics, those are in some of the higher priority areas. But where we have, I'm just pointing to this on the chart, where we have where sidewalks exist, for the most part in the higher priority areas, their condition is a little bit better than the rest of the city. So I guess that's good. We also have things like bike facilities on our open data, and so looking at that, we can see. I'm just going to turn this track back on. We can see that the number of bike facilities is there's a small disparity for the number of bike facilities that exist. But then if you look in the bike facilities that are planned, then the disparity, there isn't a disparity. But when I'm also looking at bike facilities that are planned, I can see that the areas of lowest priority, which are the highest income areas, we're planning. That's where we're planning the most amount of new bike facilities. So that might be something that we need to look at in terms of equity. So I think I'm out of time. We also have other things in here that are not necessarily asset management related, like commute time. We're looking at traffic conditions. We're looking at transit availability and things like that. So these are some examples. It takes about a day or two, or maybe a few hours to add new things. So we're always looking at new things to add. But I think I'm out of time, and I think somewhere we can post the link. So it's actually live, and if you're interested, you can go in there and look at it now.
Thanks, Steve.
So, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Very cool. And it actually makes me think about more things that you could do with this. So I'm sure there's a lot in the future for how this tool can add value to how we invest in our assets. And
this could be exactly. And this could be conducted fairly easily at any location. Like any of y'all in other cities are interested in something like this and want to know how to do it, feel free to reach me.
Yeah. Perry, let's add the link to the tool to the title page for Steve's presentation. I think that might be a good way for people to be able to get to it. All right. So just another reminder, if you have questions, please add them to the Q&A feature of the menu bar. Our next presentation is from Logan Nash. He's the Director of Transit Technology at the Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, or as we call it, the T, or the MBTA in Boston. And as I mentioned earlier, this is the Metropolitan Boston Area's transit agency. As part of the MBTA's Customer Technology Department, Logan's team is responsible for real-time information and associated operations tools. Arrival predictions, real-time locations, and other info from these systems drive modern writer tools like mbta.com and digital screens, as well as third-party apps via the agency's open API. Well, thank you, Logan, and let's get started.
All right, thank you for having me. So yes, my name is Logan Nash, and I'm from the MBTA Customer Technology Department, and I'm going to be talking about Skate, which is our mobile dispatch app for our bus officials. And so you might be asking, well, why is this guy here from some transit agency talking on a TAM webinar? And the main thing I want to talk about when it comes to our bus dispatch app is the user research that we put into building it. That if we want to give folks good visualizations, good data, good applications, I think like Jeremy alluded to, it's not so much about the data, but how that data is presented to them. And sort of what I want to posit here, and I think what we've had a lot of success with at the MBTA is doing user research to make sure that we're giving folks the data that they need for their jobs in the right way. So a little bit of background, you heard sort of in the introduction a bit about who we are at the Customer Technology Department. But as the name implies, our primary responsibility is giving digital tools to MBTA riders. So that's things like the countdown signs and stations that tell people when the next bus or train is coming. We rebuilt mbta.com from the ground up as a real-time tool in itself online. And of course, we manage all of our real-time data that goes out to third-party applications like Google Maps, like Transit app. We want to help our riders get where they're going. And we've been making a lot of investments in bus technology in particular. In the past few years, we've procured a new real-time arrivals algorithm, so it gives us better bus arrival predictions. We've installed new trackers on every single one of our 1,100 buses so that we know and our riders know where those buses are every 3 seconds instead of every 60 seconds. And we've seen about a 10% increase in bus prediction accuracy, right? These are meaningful improvements for MBTA riders. However, I think we've kind of hit a ceiling with what we can do with technology alone. So if you let me be a little bit glib, I think we can't math our way to better real-time data for riders anymore. So what we started to look at is, can we take some of the principles and approaches that we've used to give great tools for riders and use them to give better tools to our operations staff? Because if we give, no algorithm is going to tell us and tell our riders, when a bus official is holding a bus to even out headways, or when we are, have to cancel a trip because we're triaging service because someone called in sick last minute. This is the kind of information that we want to start giving to riders by giving our operations staff powerful tools to help them operate the service better and give us more information about what's going on with our transit service. So in starting to think about this, we sort of put together this idea of kind of a trinity of bus operations, at least how it happens at the MBTA. So on one end of the spectrum, you have bus dispatchers. These are folks, they're sitting behind computers at our control center. They've got like 3 different screens in front of them, mouse and keyboard, all the right technology tools. On the other end, you have our bus drivers, the operators. They're operating the vehicle frontline with riders. But we actually decided to focus on these folks kind of in the middle, what we call field inspectors or bus inspectors. So these are staff who are at stations, at major stops, in mobile cars, sort of roving around the system. They're really the first line of defense when things go wrong with bus service, and they're the folks who prevent a problem from escalating into something that could really impact riders in a bad way. And oddly enough, these are the folks, these field inspectors, who we found had kind of the worst access to technology. We weren't giving them the tools that they really needed for their work. And part of the reason for that is that until recently, all of our bus dispatch tools have been from our from sort of one sort of big vendor of ours, Transit Master. So the company there is Trapeze. I think they're also in the asset management space. And so if you look at, this is sort of the Transit Master dispatch interface. This is what our dispatchers use. So here's some data visualizations for you. This is called a route ladder, which is a fairly common visualization in the transit operations. So each rung on the ladder is basically a major bus stop. And those icons moving around the ladder are bus vehicles, and they're color-coded according to their on-time performance. And the other thing that you might notice about this is this is an interface with a lot of buttons, right? It's very desktop-y. It has like buttons and menus and things to click on and stuff like that, which is great if you're a dispatcher sitting behind a computer. When our field inspectors have had access to technology, it looks like this, and it comes on the form of like little laptops or Windows handhelds that we've issued them. And as you might imagine, an interface like the one I just showed you does not work great on a tiny little tablet. You can see on the left here an inspector trying to use that interface. And those tablets, were expensive. They broke all the time. It was just not a good experience for our operations staff, and we weren't doing them any favors as they were trying to help our riders and deliver good service. What we found is actually that most MBTA bus inspectors kind of defaulted back to tried and true paper schedules. They would rather just, people have a big stack of paper, they're managing service that way. Maybe they're using some consumer level apps with our open data, but sort of making do with what's at hand. So we decided to fix that. We went out, we looked at sort of the marketplace of tools for managing bus operations in a mobile environment. Didn't look great. So we said, look, we've got a really talented team of software engineers, UX designers, user researchers. We used, all these folks were the people who rebuilt our rider tools from the ground up as something that's sort of built around user needs. Why don't we take those same principles and apply that to operations tools? So the idea was, let's build a web app, can run on any kind of hardware, cheap, off-the-shelf Android tablets. We're going to do modern mobile-first engineering, use our existing APIs wherever possible. And the key thing here is that we are going to build everything around user research. We're going to go out to the field, we're going to work with our bus inspectors, find out what their needs are, and build the tools around that. So this is what it looks like. This is actually an early sort of animated GIF demonstration of what skate looks like. And you'll notice that like sort of the basics of it are quite similar to a lot of other dispatch systems. You know, you've got this route ladder typology here. This is what it looks like when you sort of tap on a vehicle, get some more information about what it's doing, how crowded it is, where it is along its route, later on time. But the important thing is that at this point, this was a great success for us. That we started building skate April of last year, started development, and by July we had the first version out there to inspectors. We were iterating, adding new features. I would challenge folks to ask their vendors to give them a new software tool with that kind of timeline. We do have an advantage, right? We're part of the MBTA. We were out there at our bus garages doing trainings with officials, getting feedback, and this is a regular part of how the MBTA manages our buses now. So, you know, every week over 100 officials are out there in the field using skate to do their jobs. And the great thing about having a flexible, modern in-house tool like this is we've been able to use it to meet emerging agency priorities, like crowding information for riders, which became a priority with COVID-19, like managing shuttle service. But the thing I want to dig a little deeper into with you today is a feature called mini schedules, which is one of the first features we built that sort of deviated from this basic, hey, we're going to give you a bird's eye view of service, route ladder paradigm. And to give you a little bit of background, I'm going to have to give you a quick crash course in bus operations at the MBTA. So some terminology here. A run is one bus operator's piece of work for the day, all the trips that they're doing. A block is the same thing for a vehicle. So all of the trips that a vehicle is doing for a day, a bus. And these two things don't line up one-to-one, which is why we have these things called swing-ons and swing-offs. That is where a bus operator finishes their shift, leaves the bus at a station. Another bus operator is then at that station to get on the bus and, you know, keep doing that that vehicle's work for the day. As you might imagine, inspectors told us that swing on, swing off procedure is one of the hardest things for them to manage, one of the hardest parts of their job. And you can see why, right? Something goes wrong, you end up with an operator without a bus or a bus without an operator. And in either case, you've got riders who need to go where they're going and are very frustrated. So what we saw working with these inspectors, sitting with them for hours sometimes, sort of, you know, learning from them how they do their jobs, is that a lot of them had some really clever ways to manage this using the paper that they had available. So what I have up on the screen here is one of our paper schedules. The inspector, the circle on the right is the run number of the operator that's swinging on, 1043, and the inspector has scribbled in the margins the run number of the run that's swinging off, 1290, so they can make sure everything sort of aligns and make sure that those operators are where they're supposed to be. And we saw a bunch of different versions of this. So some inspectors preferred to write out little cheat sheets. So you've got the swing offs on the left, the swing ons on the right, and then that lines up with the paper schedules. This is my personal favorite, the kind of wall calendar approach. So one inspector taped this up on the wall of one of our booths in one of our stations. This is a lot of work, right? This is, you know, but this is sort of inspectors going above and beyond because they knew this was the kind of thing that was going to help them give good service to riders. And so we knew that, like, okay, we can give folks a better experience with skate. And so this is what we built, the feature called mini schedules. And so I've got a block view on the right, which lets you see some of that same basic swing on and swing off information that inspectors were highlighting. So, you know, what runs are swinging on, what runs are swinging off. But you can also see the run view on the left, which goes a little bit deeper into what inspectors told us about their jobs, where you can see, so for one person, they're swinging off, their shift ends for a while at, you know, Nubian Station at 8 in the morning, and then they have a break. And if you're an inspector, you might want to say to this operator as they're swinging off, hey, do you have time to do overtime? I need to fill some shifts. I don't want to drop service. But you don't want to bother asking if you think that they don't have time, right? And so an inspector can look at this person's schedule and say, okay, yeah, they're swinging off, they're done with their shift here, but then they're coming back on somewhere else in the system in an hour, so this is probably not someone I could ask to do overtime. So that's the kind of information that sort of inspectors said would really help them with their job. And, you know, this view isn't brain surgery here, right? This is designed to be a simple view. It's designed around the needs of our bus inspectors. It's not designed for us or for management or anybody else. But a few things I want to note here is that this was not something we anticipated building when we started out with skate. We had the flexibility in our roadmap to build a solution based on what our users told us, right? We didn't Gantt chart everything out for 2 years at the beginning. What's the point in doing user research if we already know what we're going to give folks? We also, even as we were building the mini schedules, we put these draft designs in front of our bus inspector users. And that they were able to highlight a lot of small tweaks for us that, you know, sort of small things from an engineering perspective, but things that they felt would really improve the tool for them. And then finally, what I want to say is, like, usually we talk about user research for external tools. Like, we do the same kinds of things for mbta.com, for example, but it's a lot harder to do user research with riders or, you know, system users. You know, we have to do focus groups. We have to put surveys online. When we're doing when we're doing user research for internal staff, whether those are bus inspectors or folks who are using TAM tools, for us, we often just pick up the phone, right? We know a lot of these bus inspectors by name. We know a lot of the inspectors who have certain habits and ways they like to do things, and we built relationships with them. So I wanted to share actually a quote from a bus inspector. This is a quote that, this is something that she said, not even when the feature was fully launched in Skate, which it is now, but just when she was reviewing the designs with one of our user researchers. This is the kind of reaction that is great to hear from users. And what I want to highlight here is that ultimately this is a business tool, right? This person is having this reaction not to like the latest version of Instagram or something, but to like a tool that she has to use for her job. So this is, I think, the kind of, if we can get someone this excited about a tool for their job, about their work, I think that speaks well to the work that we're doing, and I think the power of good design and internal applications. And as we get more of our bus inspectors to adopt Skate, to use Skate regularly, we can start doing what I said at the beginning, which is capturing those interventions they're making in service, sharing them with riders, and then, of course, helping inspectors deliver that good service, which is at the core of what we do at the MBTA. And from a business perspective, having the capacity to do internal user research, to do internal application development has been helpful for us as we talk with vendors, because we can say to vendors, we know this isn't going to meet the needs of our users. We talk to our users. We know we can build something better than this internally. What can you offer us? And then finally, I'll note that all of our work on Skate is open source. So if you're a transit agency or you have a transit agency you love, have them reach out to us. We're always happy to talk. Got my contact information on the screen, and thanks very much for allowing me to crash this TAM webinar today.
Oh, that was great, Logan. And again, it's amazing to see how with visualization, you know, one thing leads to another, and you continue to make improvements. And I'm wondering what more you're going to be able to do with Skate. So to wrap up our presentation today, we have Philippe Young, who is a business development manager at Atkins, with a focus on emerging visualization technologies for the digital group. Philippe's expertise lies in project simulations and augmented and virtual reality, with an emphasis on GIS. With more than 25 years of experience in business development and project management, Philippe has been recognized as an experienced and knowledgeable advocate in AR visualization technologies by several institutions, including the United States National Science Foundation and the Augmented Reality Enterprise Association. I saw Philippe's presentation at the TRB Visualization Committee's conference last November and was intrigued by the possibilities. So let's hear from Philippe.
Thank you so much. It's my first time here, so I really appreciate the invitation. That's what I used to look like before the new normal. So let's proceed with the topic of this presentation. So, well, it's going to be on augmented and virtual reality and infrastructure management. I will wrap this around into infrastructure management towards the end of the presentation, because actually this all begins when we're executing projects and using best practices to upload or collect that data, right? Okay, so basically, I just want to say that our vision in these technologies goes far back. We've vetted partners, acquired information on their products, and wrote the guide to best practice for visualizations applications. So we also have a closer partnership with them, and to account for a seamless UX while obliging to the best data management and security protocol. So it's been a long road, a journey. I myself, actually, that's my subject matter of expertise, and it goes far back, even before Pokemon Go became popular, and that was the first instance use of augmented reality to the masses. So well, first and foremost, let's go back to the basics, right? Trust me, almost everyone that I meet, they stumble a little bit when they try to define the difference between AR and VR. So it's right here. You may just read it for yourselves, but the way I look at it is VR is great for training. So we are completely recreating an environment, right? And we're not perfect, so there'll be imperfections there. And AR is when you can take some components and elements of that environment and you take it to the field. The background is the reality, and you augment with digital information. Okay. Well, impact of mixed realities on the disruption scale. This is a very old slide, and I like to reuse it because technology years, they go really fast, and it's kind of good to go back and see how things were predicted or forecasted and where we are at. So what I would like to say is, and of course, this is done before the pandemic situation that we're finding ourselves into, but I think it's fair to say that although we probably were supposed to be around here in the entering transformation phase, I think it's fair to say that we fast forwarded to reinventing and revolutionize. So for us technology buffs, we like that because we always have issues with things moving too slow. So as of today, we are using mixed realities, scoping in projects and proposal. Here are just a couple of examples of Atkins, company I work for. Very useful and powerful drainage and utilities relocations. Again, I'm going to tie this up to infrastructure management when we get to it, and also for public engagement, like what used to be virtual, public hearings or meetings. Now they're happening virtually. So, enhancing that capability is key for public engagement, public involvement. So here's one of the instances where we apply augmented reality. Basically, it was used as an assessment tool for field assessment. So prior to initiate the design stages on this, I'm not an engineer, so if I'm using misterminologies, please give me some slack. But basically, the drainage, system had to be redone, and having X-ray vision to what's underground, pre-existing, to be demolished and proposed, it's very powerful, especially on the early stage, because this can be shared with the backend. Again, this is also good for safety, right? We have less people on the field. Maybe don't need to stop traffic to walk towards the middle of the road to make sure something's supposed to be there anyway, and so forth. I'm going to just give a little overview. We're not going to focus on VR. VR has been used for multiple years. It's the most popular and widely used of the realities, and the use and applications instances are well known. So are the benefits, right? Which are mostly for training, for simulations like grand scale events. So basically, virtual reality provides that magical leap into the future. So anyone ranging from the public to stakeholders can immerse themselves into any stages of a project's lifecycle and simulate different scenarios and outcome. So it becomes like a proactive tool that you can anticipate and have some contingency plans around any issues you may have. So it's really good tool to fetch insights and to vet potential outcomes. But as I said, on this presentation, I will focus more on the instance uses of augmented reality during a project's lifecycle, okay? As VR is a more matured solution already being used to almost its full potential. Okay, so mixed realities, that's when you either combine or you talk on both augmented and virtual reality, right? You can use immersive collaboration, right, with the digital twin. So basically, in this sense here, you are, equipped. You have to use a top-of-the-line head-mounted displays, like here, Microsoft HoloLens, because it's well equipped with sensors, which help us on mapping and geolocating an object, right, almost precisely. And you're basically leveraging CAD models, BIM, 3D models, and this can be viewed in a table. You need a flat surface. You need a surface to project that, so a tabletop, and then collaborators that may be sitting in different offices, they can walk through the same BIM model and explore all these scenarios that I spoke about. So it kind of creates a unique experience, right, among members of your team. They don't need to be in the same location, and this goes beyond then a flat screen display, because you can actually go around and kind of dive yourself into play God, if you will, right? Then this is something new, probably 3 to 4 months into it. This is for public engagement involvement. It's what I describe as the virtual user immersive event space, basically an online platform that can be accessed by anyone with a desktop, laptop, and mobile devices, like smartphones and tablets. So it's meant to enhance the user experience and interaction with stakeholders during a virtual public hearing and town hall meetings, thus, technically obliging to the public restrictions due to the pandemic, and also to other natural disasters, right? Anywhere from seismic to hurricanes, tornadoes, all of the above. That may incapacitate a meeting, but then you can still go ahead and do it remote. And also, it's not disruptive to the municipalities, because you avoid a lot of either issues that you may have with bringing the public in, but also, it's basically a day that it's different. You're not having a regular day-to-day activities on that day, so it basically makes you resilient and efficient, right? So, and lastly, but I think most important, hopefully you guys corroborate, is AR to support field operations. And here, I think there's some tremendous potentials, right? So having said that, I'll move to the next slide. Of course, we have to be mindful that, mixed realities is only as good as the data behind it, right? So if you just put in an object, but you have no instructions or information attached to it, what is the purpose of that, right? So we recommend a GIS-centric type of asset management. Why? Because it's, geographical information system, leveraging locations, and that's what it takes to leverage it into augmented reality. So, having a fully optimized approach to your data, from data collection to inspection, then, having budget and prioritized with capital management, risk management capabilities, also track and manage work orders and any other type of events. Then through GIS, you can bring that data to the field in various formats here. Augmented reality, for example, you can see the utility lines. There are, represented in a GIS, either product or interfacing through it, and also can be integrated to another asset management system. So just want to point out that without a good asset management system behind creating intelligence, the augmented reality will limit the capabilities, right? So, of course, and all of that will put out the data for performance management. MAP 21 requires states to demonstrate progress in 7 areas, and these are some of the areas of interest that we have to be mindful. It's on my area of expertise, but I know should have added this to make the point. But let's take a look at some of the projects that we use augmented reality. This is just basically a card of all of the above, anywhere from Miami-Dade Water and Sewer. We did a proof of concept there. Also for facilities management, leveraging GIS with augmented reality as a field mobility. We already spoke about this project. I'm actually working with FEMA to bring the flooding visualizations capabilities into AR. You can only imagine, especially in a coastal city like Miami, be able to see this and the potential flooding of either a historical event, like a 25, 50, 100-year flood, or maybe forecasting flooding given any natural any hurricanes that are approaching, so on and so forth. So these are the very instances. We're going to focus now on AR as a from planning through management and beyond turnkey. So this is where I'm going to tie everything together, right? So when there's a project and we are either laying down infrastructure or doing inventory of pre-existing infrastructure, if we are obliging to the best practices, which will be uploading that information, let's say on a GIS platform, right? And if we are installing, that we're going to get installation date, we're going to get crucial information that's going to help us or help the municipality start tracking the performance of those assets, right? So instead of have to do the rework, let's first do this project, then we're going to do our digital revolution, if you will. Well, we can do both combined starting from that project, because you're already doing asset in inventory and you're cataloging those assets, including the dates of installations and all the other information needed to provide that intelligence to basically do performance-based asset tracking and management, right? So in this case, augmented reality, support field activities via regular mobile applications. These are apps that you download from either iOS or Android stores, and it can play through commercial off-the-shelf smart devices. I actually use a iPad 2nd generation to test to make sure that all devices also can represent this capability, right? So, basically enables fieldworks to gain powerful insights, minimum training. Anyone off the street can pick up this solution and be able to be effective with it. And again, if you have any issues, you can always call somebody in the back end and you do a virtual collaboration call. So that person in the back end can see what you're seeing on the field and can also share and collaborate with either like a drawing tool in augmented reality, like you can put an arrow indicating where you're supposed to do something, or even share like a 3D object, like how to install or uninstall something, for example. Moving right along, I'm gonna play this video here. Hopefully it works. There you go. So this is me on the field. While we play the video, I'll just talk over it, but basically Miami-Dade Water and Sewer is one of the nation's largest utilities, right? And this is back in 2016. I was inquired to do an augmented reality POC, or proof of concept, to assess this technology at play. So mainly because Miami-Dade has been experiencing a boom in construction and land development. So the ability to locate assets underground, and this is connected live to the municipality's GIS. Okay, so this is basically coming from the cloud, from their own GIS data sets, and we're getting information, any attributes attached, like here, for example. You can also have previous work orders, multimedia pictures, any information that somebody on the field will be collecting can be uploaded and to be viewed later by any other either own or third-party resource. Okay, and obviously, how we accomplish this, we are leveraging the device's embedded sensors, same technology that we use on a day-to-day basis to go from point A to point B using our drive-by apps. It's at use here. Also leveraging Esri's capabilities and a triangulation of sensors, and that's more of a proprietorship of the developer. So here's one that I think it's going to be more interesting to the audience. Okay. This is a test, field test. Basically, we were competing for a smart intersection project, 3,000 intersections in Miami, changing the assets and components of those intersections for smart ones. So it's a massive endeavor, and we figured that having these capabilities to assess the project, field crew doing this would be so great, because you can add PDFs, instructions to how to if you go into a cabinet, for example, you have to reset something. These new smart devices, smart assets are now talking to any application that is listening. So IoT capabilities are also here. And as if it was integrated to an asset management solution, GIS-centric, then you can also have previous work orders. And then if you still have any doubts, you can always call somebody in the back end, right? So there's zero chance of somebody coming back to the office holding a piece of paper saying, sorry, I couldn't find it. You have ground clearance, work order attachments. These are placeholders, right? This is a test. And if you're asking me, how did you integrate this to this? These are basically placeholders for the traffic light boxes. Actually, I challenge our GIS department that I will go on location, take 4 pictures, okay, from each side of the intersection, and if they can set up this augmented reality scene just by, excuse me my terminology, eyeballing it, right? And that's exactly how it came out. I mean, it's almost as accurate. Of course, we can move this up and down, but this was just a field test. And here, again, connecting to infrastructure management. So we're installing assets in 3,000 intersections. At the moment of that installation, if you catalog these assets, which you're doing naturally anyway, then when you turnkey and you deliver this project, then all you have to do is activate the asset management part of that, right? So that's why applying these best practices early, and any upcoming projects for a municipality is an opportunity to go through your digital revolution. You know, if you want to bring some data, you know, revamp it from legacy systems into more modern applications. Let me move faster because I know I'm running out of time. Oh yeah, by the way, you can touch right here on this top. If you touch right here, for example, you can get also a bird's eye view of your location. Okay, so this is a more recent project, although it's in an airport, but I think it conveys the message of the art of the possible for transportation-centric, you know, projects. Basically, you know, the first most powerful use is utility network AR view, which you're seeing here, pre-existing utilities coming in from the city into the airport. This is where it transitions into the airport management from the city, right? Again, X-ray vision to underground network, but pre-existing demo and proposed. So this can be so powerful throughout many stages of a project's life cycle. So you can reuse it and accessible to anyone that is partaking in any projects. And of course, you can limit the view or accessibility to the data behind the GIS, so it offers that capability as well, right? Same project here. So here we're now leveraging augmented reality, BIM and GIS. So you know, Atkins, we're having the BIM's attributes preserved, right? Because this is interoperability between BIM, basic Autodesk and Esri. So we put a BIM into a geodatabase, preserving BIM's attributes, again, making a case where if you have a high level of detail BIM, you can leverage those details, like, you know, part numbers, instructions how to install something, manufacturer information. You can push that beyond turnkey, where it becomes now your registry, asset registries, and then you have installation dates, all that really rich information to create intelligence and start tracking your assets on a performance-based approach. So just FYI, to extract, we extract layers, right, from the BIM of interest, and it only takes about 10 minutes to do it. To set up this takes about 10 minutes. I'm going to play the video now. This is me doing a field. This is in March, right before we go into full lockdown. So this is basically, you know, this is Fort Myers International Airport, the main terminal expansion. At my location right here, I will be under the terminal. So our team successfully conducted proof of concept, as you're seeing here, you know, to visualize the jet fuel utility lines. By interacting with these lines, you can also upload information. For example, here, a demo plan, right? So the user here could be still in doubt. Maybe, where is that the jet fuel pit locator right there? Let me go back to AR mode and see if it's exactly going to be in front of me, because I'm located right there. And yes, there it is, right? So then the user here still made sense that, well, you know, I'm underneath the extension. Here's the extension, and I'm actually located underneath here. So through backend collaboration, just like you're seeing on the screen right now, or if you're manipulating it, you can share this information, you know, basically like a screen sharing, right, with your resource on the field from within the app. And then you can demonstrate to him that here is the BIM, more details about it. You can see the utility lines underground. And indeed, it looks like it should be underneath the extension area. So, you know, maybe that field resource is trying to make a decision where to create a stage area, you know, avoid redo costs, like to have to move again stuff off the ground, you know. So example of how that can be accomplished. So this is very, we were just about to go to a pilot. We were going to introduce this on a day-to-day basis because our own engineer said that 50%, if he told me this, man, wow, if I had this on my hands, 50% of the time would not be needed for me to be here doing these inspections, because I could have somebody on the field just do this and I'll be able to make a decision from the back end. So 50% savings right there, right?
Philippe,
Sure, go ahead.
I think you need to wrap up so we
Wrap
can
up.
have a little Q&A, all right?
Sure, of course. So just going to go to other instances of BIM in augmented reality. I think that this explains for itself. In this case, even more efficiencies can be pushed through, like 66 to 85% reduction in site visits, right, for inspections. And it's been well documented on the right here. On the left, you see this is from 4 or 5 years ago, that without any instance uses, we're forecasting only 30% improvement. Our own feedback is 50%, and independent studies are also corroborating. So you can expect that much savings by applying these types of visualizations. Again, third-party integrations through AR, through GIS. Here's the GIS architecture to account for all the best protocols in terms of data security and interoperability. Again, GIS allows you to also do facility management within a geospatial environment. And I'm going to leave you guys with what's upcoming next. I don't know if you guys are aware, but the new iPad Pro has embedded LiDAR. And this is what it looks like from the field. You'll see mapping the surroundings. So this is going to even increase the level of mapping and accuracy. And having said that, I'm going to leave you with the last, hold on, there you go. The last, here we go. And this is basically a new capability, reality mesh, brought by one of our partners. This is amazing, and I think you guys are going to enjoy this. So basically, reality mesh is a 3D model of real world conditions. So imagine, again, going back to a project, uploading all this information that now can become part of your asset management mobile solution and be able to access this information from the field and make some proactive decisions can be powerful. You can have capture reality with GIS utilities coexisting, and even flooding events, which is what we're working with FEMA now. So having said that, here we go. We're working with FEMA on bringing flooding into AR. So I'll leave with this slide, and thank you so much for the time. Sorry I went above, but trying to give you the best and the latest.
All right, thanks everybody. Thanks Philippe for that great presentation. Again, this is Matt Hardy. So I'm going to sort of now transition to the Q&A portion. If people have any questions that they want answers to, please use the Q&A functionality on the GoToWebinar platform. As y'all start typing, I guess one thing that kind of came, well, first off, thanks to everybody for participating. I know I learned a lot. Some of the information that Steve talked about from an equity perspective was just, it's very timely for some of the things that I'm working on. I think many of the states are working on. And Jeremy and Logan, just great information, great examples of the art of the possible, of what we have to look forward to in the future. It kind of leads me to one question, and I think some of you addressed this, but I just kind of wanted to come back to it. And it's for those that kind of work at the agency, it's if you want to sort of talk about this or how it's been addressed within your agency, either Seattle, MBTA, Oklahoma, is the tension sometimes between spending money on data and information and data scientists versus spending money on actually going out and sort of maintaining, operating, or building something. So I guess the question is, has your agency has it been difficult to sort of get them to spend money on this type of data analysis, the IT tools, the technology tools that are helping you make better decisions, understand what's going on, versus actually spending money on going out and making a repair or building or maintaining an asset? And I don't know if Jeremy, Logan, Steve, even Philippe, if y'all have any desire to sort of And you know,
Why don't we have all of the presenters put their cameras on and open your mics, and we can have a conversation.
I can lead off and just say that, I mean, I think the situation you want to be in is that you have the folks who are sort of on, let's say, the business side of the agency, and for a transit agency like the MBTA, it's, you know, our operations staff, right? It's subway operations, bus operations. What you really want is you want to have demonstrated the value of your data tools such that you've got the business folks who go to the leadership of the agency and say, yeah, of course we should be funding this. Like, you know, and I think we're in a good place at the MBTA with a tool like Skate, where, you know, say the head of bus operations, you know, he sings the praises of this application just as much as I do, because he knows that we've been out there talking to his staff and building around his needs. So I think that's where you want to be as an agency, where you've got sort of an alignment where even the sort of the most operations oriented sort of meat and potatoes folks in the agency are saying, yeah, we need good technology because it helps us do our jobs.
I think that's exactly right. One of the ways that we've been most successful at expanding out our GIS group, which we've done a lot of over the last few years, in addition to procurement and new technology, is being able to demonstrate upfront ROI. And so when we make a proposal that, hey, we want to add staff, or we want to go buy a piece of software, it's always followed immediately by an ROI document where I've done the legwork to figure out, hey, what is this going to save us over a year, over 2 years, over 5 years? And so, you know, we've spent a lot of money, but we've been able to show that, hey, we're going to save 3 times that amount or 5 times that amount over X amount of years. And I think at that point, it becomes a really easy sell. I mean, because I think in this day and age, everybody recognizes, hey, we need to have access to data. But there's that hurdle of, you know, especially up front, some of these products are fairly expensive. But if you can say, hey, you know, this data or this piece of software is going to save us X amount of dollars and X amount of time, I think it becomes a really easy thing for them to justify and for them to get their heads around. So.
great. Steve,
Yes,
any thoughts from you?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to mention, so I think, you know, I agree. We're probably on a fairly mature in terms of sort of the life cycle of the culture of investing in technology. But I think there's a difference between sort of things that are fairly easy to do and things that are a lot more complicated and highly technical. And so my perspective is that as a city agency, we're probably not going to be at the cutting edge, but some people that are working around us in Seattle and in the tech community are going to be more at the cutting edge. So partnering and even if it's not a monetary contract, but working with other technology collaborators is sort of key to not falling too far behind.
Great, thanks. And Philippe?
Yes, all of the above. So I second all of that. Of course, all stakeholders and collaborators in the same conversation. ROI to support any investments, but long-term vision, right? I mean, there's so many opportunities missed because, no, let's first take care of this project, then we'll take a look at that. Well, you can do simultaneously and avoid reworks. But to get to that conclusion, it requires that all stakeholders and collaborators be in the same conversation, and that most often, unfortunately, does not happen. Everything is decided in silos.
Great, thanks. Yana, did you have any questions?
Yes, so one question I have for all of the panelists is, you know, you guys are all doing exciting things in various areas, and what are your thoughts about, you know, for the kind of the community as a whole, how can we work at a national level, whether it's AASHTO or Federal Highways or TRB, to advance better communication and visualization? Like, so what are your thoughts on that? Who wants to start? Philippe.
All right. So I think it's a generational power struggle, but just open up the data to everybody to see, right? Make it public, invite collaboration. One of the cities here in Greater Miami, Coral Gables, they have 3 or 4 designs for some type of park, or like just like a per place. I think it was a port or something like that. I don't remember. But they say, hey, can we put all the 3 BIM designs in augmented reality, open that app to the public, and they can vote? That's what it takes, because we are in an age of collaboration. So we must fight that urge of keep everything behind closed doors. And that's what some of us still think as, data management safety, which is not probably. But anyway, that's my take on that.
I might even go beyond that to say that I think open data is kind of not enough, that the resources that are available to most public agencies are fairly limited, right? We're one of the largest transit agencies in the country. We have software engineers on staff, designers, user researchers on staff. We're very lucky. Most transit agencies can't afford that. And I think what it means is that a lot of transit agencies are sort of maybe don't have the staff to even make the right decisions on buying software, are wasting money with vendors that's duplicative, are sort of making business decisions that may not be the best business decisions, just because it is hard to think through these huge multi-million-dollar technology contracts when you don't have the technology staff in-house to sort of think through what a modern architecture looks like, and how will this architecture be serving us in 5 years. And I think there's some real exciting opportunities for Federal Highways and AASHTO, and since I'm a transit agency, I'll say FTA as well, to be establishing some of those resources, open source tools, resources for thinking about procurements in a smart way, so we can be smarter when we're working with vendors.
I think that's an excellent point, and I think we've watched that kind of real time play out on the AASHTO side of things. So I sit on the Technical Application and Architecture Task Force that advises SCOA on a lot of the application development, and I think that's really obvious, that you get a lot of really smart people that are trying to make the right decisions for their agencies, but because they don't have the resources behind them, some of the technical side of things on the software development and things like that kind of get lost. And like you said, I think people set out making the right decisions, and it sets people up for problems down the road that they didn't anticipate because they didn't have the resources up front to really see kind of that bigger picture. And so I think one of the things that AASHTO is working on are data integration standards and standardization for APIs and things like that, and all those things are great. But I think it can even go a step further, in that some type of national guidance on not necessarily specific software recommendations, but maybe implementation practices, or general data structure or IT infrastructure sort of things, I think would be helpful. Or even maybe an advisory board of some kind that people could come to and bounce ideas off of, I think would be good.
Excellent. Thanks, Jeremy. Logan or Steve, anything else to add? We're hitting 3:30 here. All right, hearing none, I'll just echo what Philippe said about, and Logan, about making the data, available and kind of going beyond that. I just think, taking ownership of the data and the information is really important, and just getting it, making the public aware of it, and not being scared by it. I think will sort of go a long way as well. It gets a little more of the performance management side beyond just asset management, but I think that's an important point. So with that, I have 3:32. Again, I want to thank Philippe, Logan, Steve, Jeremy for your time presenting today. I know that we're all busy and we're all in this, doing webinars and stuff like that from the basement or our bedrooms or our mobile offices or wherever. We're all probably getting tired of that, but I do thank you very much for taking the time out to participate. I do want to remind everybody that this is a bi-monthly, so it happens, every other month on the odd months. So this was, even month. So this was August. The next one is going to be in October. So that's an even month, October 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern time. The topic from that asset management perspective is going to be on reevaluating asset management targets. So, Some of this has to do with the federal performance measures, where states have an opportunity to kind of go in there and reevaluate their targets. But this is an important topic, regardless of the federal performance measures. So hopefully you will have time to listen in to that and participate. We'll have the list of presenters confirmed shortly. Anyways, additional webinars, we'll be continuing to do this for quite a while. I think number 50, we're going to have some sort of a little party or some sort of little event just to sort of commemorate that. I think 50 in this webinar series, I think that's pretty awesome. Again, please continue to sort of send us ideas on if you want to see any topics or for us to revisit any topics that we have covered already that you think that we should be covering. And again, as a reminder, you can access all of the recordings, so the previous 44, including this one, 45 webinars at tam-portal.com, tam-portal.com. You can download presentations. You can also find contact information for all of the presenters, and hopefully everybody would be amenable to answering questions offline via email, that sort of thing. So with that, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody that could join us today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you next time. Thanks.